Howdy, welcome. Before we review some rules of equivalencies in propositional logic, in this video I want to cover a somewhat strange argument. Let's say we're given the sentence or the premise P and not P. Hence we have line 1, P and not P, and this is just a premise. What can we infer or derive or prove given that sentence? It is a conjunction. This means we can engage in simplification. Thus, let's do that. For line 2, we can get P by the simplification of line 1. Now, given P, we can put it in a disjunctive relation with anything whatsoever through the law of addition. So for line 3, we can say P or Q by the addition law, line 2. We can do another simplification of line 1 to get not P. Line 4, not P. Simplification, line 1. Notice lines 3 and 4. We have P or Q, not P, well, therefore Q. For line 5, we'll say therefore Q is the case because we have a disjunctive syllogism with lines 3 and 4. And Q, as a symbol, can pretty much represent anything whatsoever. It may stand for example, the moon is made out of cheese. Thus, we have just proved, given the premise P and not P, that the moon is made out of cheese. What happened? How did this occur? Well, clearly, we started from a premise, P and not P, that's absolute nonsense. It's an inconceivable proposition. It's saying that P is the case and that P is not the case simultaneously. And it's from that contradiction that we can prove anything we want. We can prove Q. Think of it this way. If we have the atomic sentence P is the case, that cancels out the possibility of having the sentence P is not the case. And vice versa. That is, if P is not the case, there's no way that P can be the case. So to affirm both simultaneously in a conjunctive molecular sentence cannot be done. Doing so is self-evidently absurd. And that's really because the law of contradiction is obviously true. We can grasp its truth immediately or directly. Now, this law of contradiction in philosophy really has two flavors. Now, by the way, the law of contradiction is sometimes called the law of non-contradiction. But regardless, on the one hand, we have the logical order, and that's really what we're concerned with fundamentally. And this deals with, at least principally, propositions. And on the other hand, we have all of reality as such. We can say the real order or the metaphysical order. So this deals with being as such, or we might think of it as extramental reality. Now, in terms of the real or metaphysical violation of the law of contradiction, we can quote Aristotle. He said, "The same attribute cannot at one and the same time both belong and not belong to the same thing. Therefore, it is really impossible for the law of contradiction to be violated in the real order. In reality, it's an impossible happening, or we might say it is unrealizable." On the other hand, in the logical order, we might say it is inconceivable. Now, it's possible in the sense that we can claim P and not P. That is possible. Nevertheless, it is inconceivable. And moreover, it doesn't really represent anything in the extramental realm. It doesn't represent anything in reality out there in the world. Now, why look at this somewhat strange argument? Well, principally because I think it shows their laws of thought presupposing good logic. Good logic depends upon the law of contradiction. It's really a first principle of good thought. Now, by the way, interestingly enough, there are some contemporary logic systems that have been developed where they play fast and loose with the law of contradiction. They actually allow in some contradictions into their system. However, there's a big catch if they do that. because they have to prevent this problem of contradiction explosion. That's where you can prove anything at all, where you can prove that the moon is made out of cheese. But you can also prove various contradictions, infinitely many contradictions. You can prove that 5 is equal to 7, that 100 is equal to -4, and so on and so forth. So they therefore have to isolate those contradictions within their system because they don't want this contradiction explosion problem. However, my challenge to any such system is this: what is a genuine example of something that's both true and also violates this law of contradiction? And I claim there can be none, because any supposed contra-example can be and ought to be interpreted in a manner that will not violate this law. Logic, we might say, is the science of what you ought to think. It's fundamentally a normative science. And in fact, many philosophers, I think most philosophers, would agree with me that the law of contradiction can never truly be violated. Anyhow, I think we should keep in mind that philosophically there are first principles of thought. There are first, so to speak, meta principles even in logic, and the law of contradiction is at the heart of good thinking.